Rock and roll, everybody. Welcome to Friday 15. My name is Brian Beck. I'm here with Andy Hoar. This is Master B2B, and we are here for another week of fun and exciting content all about B2B e-commerce, digital transformation. Andy, welcome to Friday 15.
Well, Brian, I don't say this much, but it is freaking cold here. Okay, so I just looked at my phone. It is -5 air temperature.
Okay.
Yeah. So for those of you can see, I just held my phone up. It's minus. It's gone up. It was -9 an hour ago.
Oh my gosh, man. Well, here I'm gonna say so sorry. It's 55 here. So and the high today will be 62. Oh man.
Yeah, I don't need to hear that.
A little bit of a difference. Well, anyway, everyone, welcome to Friday 15. We've got a great topic to talk about today. It's all about AI, and we're going to get a little techie today. But hey, before we do that, let's get into some breaking news. Of course, it is related to the topic. Andy, did you see this? Google's Gemini to power Apple's AI features like Siri. Apple's paying Google $1 billion to access its AI technology. And it's an admission, according to this article, that Apple Intelligence released in 2024 has been a failure. Separately, between 2021 and 2022, Google paid Apple $38 billion to secure default search placements. It's incredible. You know, what's incredible to me, Andy, is the dollars that are passing between these companies. But it also speaks to our topic today. But what's your reaction to this?
You know, it's this weird relationship between Apple and Google where, I guess frenemies is the right description, but I'm not sure that's even correct because they're arch enemies when it comes to the iPhone versus Android environments. Those are the two competing environments. But then here they are working together because they've been powering Apple's search for the longest time. It led to that lawsuit that the federal government brought and then dismissed because ChatGPT appeared on the scene and Google said, hey, we don't dominate search anymore. Look at this.
Yeah.
But yeah, they are paying each other billions of dollars going back and forth. But the big news here is that Apple Intelligence is lost.
Yeah.
They started a couple of years ago. It didn't take hold. People said they should buy Perplexity. That was floating for a while. They should have. Now Perplexity is too expensive. I don't know what the hell Apple's doing when it comes to their AI stuff, but they just surrendered to their arguable arch rival Google.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's also not good news for Microsoft because the other option here was ChatGPT, and Apple just chose Google. So we'll talk a bit more about how this oligopoly, there's the key word today, is evolving.
Well, it's fascinating because it's all, is it migrating all to sort of just a few platforms? That really is our topic today, is intelligence on demand, AI, becoming an oligopoly. That's what we're going to talk about. And, it ties into how these companies are, how they're investing. That's big news from Apple, and kind of the change in the overall environment. And, it's really turning into a war, right? A fight for the future, protocol wars. And they've had all these recent announcements, about, UCP by Google. And so why don't you give us some framework here, Andy, on what this all means, or set it up for us?
So this happens in every evolving market. There become the protocol wars. Remember way back in the day, and we're probably losing half our audience and we're dating ourselves, but the VHS versus Betamax thing from like 30, 40 years ago. When things start out, they're always competing protocols. Here's one that's evolving. So they're called the protocol wars now. It just started about 6 months ago. So ACP was launched by OpenAI / ChatGPT. I think it was September of 2025. Yeah. And UCP, which is Universal Commerce Protocol, was launched by Google. Now they all have partners here at the highest of levels. What this is basically is if you want to go into ChatGPT or Gemini or any one of these chatbots and you want to buy something, there's no simple, easy way to do that, right? ChatGPT doesn't have a connection to a bunch of vendors on the back end who are showing price and product information, inventory, because you can't buy something if you don't know what it is and if you don't know what's available. So how do you make that connection? Well, that was where OpenAI / ChatGPT launched in September. They made it possible for everybody to use this protocol to feed them that information. And all of a sudden, go ahead.
Essentially, just to clarify that, make sure I understand, Andy, you being our techie here, essentially this is enabling shopping, right? It's enabling commerce through the LLMs, through basically the search engine that is, ChatGPT 5, for example, right? Okay, got it. So these protocols are standards by which commerce can be enabled on those AI platforms, correct?
Right, and not to be outdone, Google announced at NRF just
Uh-huh.
about 2 weeks ago. Sorry.
Yep.
They announced 2 weeks ago, I think it was, that they have their own protocol. And so everybody's kind of got their camps. Let's see, OpenAI launched theirs back in September, and they partnered with Stripe.
Yep.
And theirs is sort of known as the Apple approach, which is sort of weird. It's
Okay.
called OpenAI, but it's a closed ecosystem. And
Yep.
then the Google one,
Yep.
the Universal Commerce Protocol, was launched with Shopify and Target and Walmart and a couple other companies, Etsy.
Interesting.
And
Yep.
that's the Android approach, which is the open approach. So again, one of them will win. Maybe they both do well. Who knows? You generally speaking, over time, one wins and then it becomes genericized. But there's a battle royale right now for this space. And going back to the Apple article, the really interesting thing about Apple Google is that it indicates that AI, or intelligence on demand, is now becoming commoditized. So Apple didn't need to develop their own version. They just bought it on the open market, right?
Yeah.
So that was what led us to kind of think about this. Okay, so what are the options for buying AI on the open market? And I think if you just do that slide up there, there really are 8 companies that are playing in the space right now. And we call it a $3 trillion battle royale because, believe it or not, that's just the money that they're spending right now.
Oh my gosh. That's how
not
much
the market
investment is
universe.
going in? $3 trillion? That's
$3 trillion, which
And
begs the question.
is this just the commerce component of it?
No, these are the companies. Those 8 companies are spending $3 trillion on the infrastructure, the people,
I see.
et cetera, to be one of the players here. Now, what's interesting is Google's entire search business apparently is like a $300 billion business.
Yeah.
So do the math here. Who's going to recoup their $3 trillion investment if the market universe is only right now 300 billion? Now, we talked about this several weeks ago. The argument is that the $300 billion market is undersized, that once this becomes available, AI can be, passed around, embedded in more technologies, that $300 billion
license
market,
costs, maybe things like that. Yeah, right. Yeah.
So these guys are all betting collectively $3 trillion on the other end of this. I think that's probably true, but it's also probably true that not all these companies are going to succeed. But to do it, this is the really fascinating part. You see these companies, you got Google, you got OpenAI, which is partnered with Microsoft. You got AI X Grok, which is run by Elon Musk, who's the richest man in the world. So he's got deep pockets. DeepSeek is a Chinese company. You got Claude, you got Perplexity. By the way, companies like Amazon and Google are investing in a lot of these companies in addition to their own one, which is what Amazon has, Titan. And then, of course, just hanging out on the side there is Meta, which is repeatedly like a multi-trillion-dollar company, and they have been the most aggressive about hiring people with billion-dollar pay packages to lure these people in. So the question we have today is, those are 8 companies.
Right.
Is that the universe here? Or are there going to be more companies, fewer companies? And what does it take to be one of those companies? Well, here's what it takes. It takes trillions of dollars. It literally does, because you have to buy those NVIDIA chips and these GPUs and GPUs. You've got to have the right people, and you have to have the infrastructure in place to do it. I mean, if you don't have the data, you can't train the model. So these all lend themselves to this idea that this is becoming an oligopoly.
Interesting.
And,
so what is an oligopoly?
Well, if you remember back from our Econ 101 classes, there's the monopoly, which is one company with total control. There's the duopoly, like FedEx and UPS, which is they're highly independent. I worked at FedEx for a summer, and I remember everything was, are we going to do this or not? And they're like, what is UPS doing? So that's what the duopoly does.
Right.
An oligopoly, on the other hand, is where you've got somewhere between 2 and 10. But I like this definition. The Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, in a probably wonky academic paper, said that if 5 firms in an industry control more than 60% of the total market sales, like in the airline industry or the film studios industry, they call that an oligopoly. Well, let's look at the numbers.
Right.
So What's the market share look like? Well, um, pretty much oligopolistic, wouldn't you say?
Right. Yeah. I mean, ChatGPT has 68% of the the AI chatbot market share, and Google's not far behind it. Well, is growing 18%. But then you've got, yeah. I mean, those are almost like a duopoly, Andy, right now. That's going to change, right?
But yeah, but again, we talked about, Meta, who's not even really listed here because they don't
Right.
show up because they're less than 1%.
Well, and neither
But
does Amazon, right? So,
yeah,
right,
and Titan's not even in here, which by the
right,
way is powering parts of Rufus and the
right,
Amazon Business Assistant, but also not. I mean, they're
right.
using Perplexity, so there's a lot of double and triple dipping going on here.
Oh, confusing.
And
Right.
it makes the point that they can swap these things out like that.
Yeah.
You can train a model. So if Meta's model's not working, they'll dump it and use somebody else's model. If that model works for a year and then it falls apart, they'll dump it and use another one. So there really is this intelligence on demand idea, which is what
Right.
Apple did, right?
Right. Right.
But there got to
Right.
be some foundational models here that are run by a couple of the big companies. The question is how many? And
Right.
I'm concerned that you're going to have some serious resources to do this.
Well, here's the thing, though, Andy. I mean, it's like anything else. I mean, I think about this. Years ago, I used to work at AT&T. Remember it when
Did
AT&T
you?
was?
Was that
Yeah.
were you the one who picked up the phone when I called?
I was.
Oh,
But
okay.
when I
I
started,
recognized your voice.
well, think about this for a moment, right? When I started, and it was the '90s, and at the time there was still long distance phone service. There was a huge amount of infrastructure required back when when the telephone system was developed, a century whatever and a half ago, that that was required in order to invest, and so you ended up with a regulated monopoly, essentially, right? The Bell telephone system. Well, when I worked at AT&T, it was a vestige of that. It had been split up. Bell Telephone had been split up into regionals, as you recall.
Yeah, like
But
Bell Atlantic and Pac
right,
Bell. Yeah.
yeah, remember that? And then
Yeah.
AT&T actually went out there, and they were the long distance company when they split up. AT&T ran the long distance service, but then AT&T was getting into then buying all these local telephone companies. They were rebuying some of the Bell companies. They had
Oh yeah.
AT&T wireless services, so they had a mobile phone division. They were getting into data services. So they were attempting to rebuild, but the fact of the matter is it was all about the level of investment required to deliver a service. And there's got to be some parallels here. Obviously, we're in a very different age.
Oh
But
yeah, telecom, railroads.
railroads,
There are
yeah,
several examples here where the amount of infrastructure required, resource requirements are so high. I mean, I can't just start an AI company. I could
right,
leverage somebody else's, but do you realize how much compute power you need? The data centers,
right,
just the sheer power. That's a whole nother discussion for another day.
yeah,
We don't have a large enough grid to power these things. I mean, who can
yeah.
afford that?
Well, and what's fascinating and the implications it has for players on the other side of this, right? I mean, most of our community is not going to go out and start an AI company, but they're going to be having to work with the outcomes of what happens here. It's just like the telephone business. I mean, if you were a business needing telephone service 35, 40, 50 years ago, you had one option, right? So and it was regulated by the government. You had to pay a certain, so this has implications for utility, for cost, for features, for innovation. So for years and years, the telephone business, because it
Yeah.
was regulated, there was no innovation. So do we end up in a situation like that here? I doubt it, but
Well, this is
particularly,
the opposite of that. It's like
right,
hyper innovation because,
right,
ChatGPT has 68% market share. You realize that's down from like 85%?
right, right, right,
So they're going this direction because Gemini, which we've talked about, Google Gemini has actually been on the upswing. You
right.
pointed out there was an interesting article about how Google appears to be able to subsidize their
Yes,
AI mode without
yeah,
charging for ads, whereas ChatGPT is now launching ads and charging
they have to.
4%. We'll
Yeah,
talk about that probably next week. But
yeah.
yeah, there's that going on. So I would expect that ChatGPT's market share is going to fall. Plus,
Yeah.
some of the other players like Meta haven't really even ramped up yet.
Well, I mean, and think about it from the point of view of a VP of e-commerce at a B2B company. You're trying to figure out where do you place your digital advertising dollars. Then you look at the market share for search, and you got traditional Google search at 78%. And now you've got ChatGPT at 17% of queries. I mean,
Well,
this is incredible. I mean, this is all changing so fast. Where do you put your dollars, and how do you even optimize? I mean, that's going to be a topic at our summit, right? How do you optimize for AEO? all this battle has huge implications for our community. Any reactions
Well,
here?
well, what's the relevant market universe? So way back in the day, my first job out of college, I worked for an antitrust economic consulting firm. I know it sounds
Oh, you
weird.
did? Oh, interesting. Okay.
But we actually did market sizing, market entry. We talked about barriers to entry, et cetera. It was almost like a theoretical thing. It was a bunch of PhDs who worked at the FTC and the DOJ, and companies would
Yep.
hire us to define the market as being broader than what it appeared to be. Well, this one's interesting because is the market really about AI, this commoditized kind of
Right.
intelligence on demand, or is it really the front of the
Right.
market, which is where are people going to make, where are they going to search, right? It
Right.
used to be
Right.
Google, and now it's like ChatGPT, and we've seen that battle take place. That's why that second set of numbers might be even more interesting, because if you go back to that for a moment,
Yeah. Yep.
you can see that in spite of all what we said, with ChatGPT having 68% of the AI market, traditional Google search is still has what, 80%
Yeah.
of the
Still
search market?
dominating.
And
Yep.
you just said ChatGPT is only 17%. So what is the market here? If you can define it as kind of the front end where people are searching through chatbots,
Right.
then look, this is wide open because Siri is still a player in that one, right? Because Siri is essentially a search engine. If you think about
Sure.
it, you ask
Sure.
Siri questions, right? Well, if Google's powering that and also Gemini, and then you've got ChatGPT doing partnerships with everybody else, we're going to have a very interesting dynamic here.
You know what's fascinating is it still all ties back to the foundation for, again, thinking about this from a B2B company's perspective. Know thy customer, right? Where are they searching? What are they looking for? How are they interacting? How are they finding you? It's raising the bar on that too, because companies have to know to stay relevant. We talk about product search shifting to Amazon. Yes, that's happened. Are you there, and are you present? Companies, it has taken B2B companies years to figure that out. So what's going to happen with with all this AEO stuff? Companies are going to be left in the dust. Now, I think the B2B companies have an advantage, Andy, because a lot of companies have invested in content to be true authorities in their category.
Yes.
So perhaps, unlike maybe some of their consumer counterparts, these B2B companies, maybe this works to their advantage in the longer term, because they have invested so much in really understanding the uses and use cases of the customer, the complex technical aspects of applications and things. So maybe this will help them.
Well, and it also begs the question, this is really a B2C issue right now, because there aren't a lot of businesses that are going to ChatGPT or Gemini and making purchases yet.
Right.
B2C is a little different. I mean, all those companies were racing to adopt one of these two standards because they want to be on ChatGPT. When somebody says, I'm looking for a heating pad, and it pops up in ChatGPT and says, hey, this is one you want to buy. Here's why. Click on it, and you just make the purchase. It's a shopping cart, right? There isn't really this notion in B2B of that yet. But it does beg the question, what happens when people are using these chatbots more frequently for everything, not just B2C, but also B2B? Or if they're powering phones and you're doing it remotely and you're talking to Siri or you're talking to ChatGPT somehow, and you say, hey, I need this thing. It's, oh, great, here you go. B2B companies are going to have to get involved in these protocol wars. They're going to have to decide which one of these, both, neither, one, the other, I don't know, to be a part of. But the bigger issue over the horizon is, can B2B companies compete to be the front end customer experience? That's over the horizon. That's a much bigger issue. But this is all leading in that direction. So that's why we wanted to do this, was to let the B2B companies know that you got to pay attention to these protocol wars, because you're probably going to have to be a part of it. And over the horizon, it may displace you to some extent.
Yeah. So, just like Amazon has done with their search and all the search shifting there. So,
Exactly.
we wanted to ask, this is, again, it's a little bit of a techie issue, but it has business implications, guys. And so those of you listening, you need to pay attention to this. And we actually asked our community, Andy, through LinkedIn. We said, hey, how many foundation models do you think will power this whole market in 5 years? And it was all over the place. I mean, people, it's basically a third. Some said 2 to 3, 30% said, 39% said 4 to 5, 36% said more than 6. People don't know, and I think this is reflective of, even we don't know. It's going to.
Well, what do you think? I'm going to ask you and put you on the spot. What's
well, I think I think that, to your point about commoditization, it's going to get to a point where some of these elements are commoditized, and I think that other companies will use things that companies invest in, like Google, OpenAI, whoever, to develop the infrastructure and then leverage that infrastructure, just like the whole Apple story we talked about at the beginning. I think you'll see more of that. I think it'll be a limited number. It'll end up being like a like a triopoly, like a FedEx, UPS, and Amazon doing all the shipping now in the U.S. Or even how the telephone services market has evolved. Some where there's there's just a lot of investment required, and not many companies can do it. So I think you're going to end up with, I don't know, 4 or 5 of these, maybe, and some of them to be more specialized. So that's my thought.
Yeah, I'd agree, actually. I think fundamentally there might be like 3 of them, and then like the telecom industry where there's excess capacity,
Right.
they'll resell it through,
Right. Exactly.
wireless or whatever.
Yeah. There'll be a
It will be
marketplace that
limited,
evolves, and yeah, exactly. Right.
but will it be regulated if there's only 3?
I don't know.
Probably to some
I don't
extent.
know. Be interesting. Yeah.
But the level of investment is just too high. I mean,
That's right.
when there's a T in front of the amount of money you have to spend to be a
It's
player here,
insane,
there
dude.
are a limited number of companies can afford to do that.
Yes, that's right. All right, Andy, we got to wrap up for time here. We got a couple quick announcements. Want to remind everyone about our Nexus service, which is your personal digital lifeline for B2B, providing expert advice, connecting you with other experts and your peers to answer questions. It is a paid service. Go to our website, masterb2b.com, and click on Nexus to find out more about that. Andy, I'm super excited about our summit coming up. It's 2 days. It'll be March 10th and 11th at the University of Chicago's Gleacher Center. Looking forward to seeing those Nobel laureates hanging on the wall. Not actual people, just pictures people.
We're approaching 80% full, by the way, now. So
I know. Yeah.
if you want to come, you better get in soon.
Yeah. Go to our website, masterb2b.com, click on events. You'll see the summit and submit your credentials there and for approval and registration. And then finally, wanted to let you all know that this session is available via podcast form on your favorite podcast service. And also, please, guys, give us a review. That'd be really helpful. Help spread the word. We appreciate all of you joining us. And Andy, any final words before we wrap for another Friday 15?
Still -5 here, so it's still cold.
No, it's not. It hasn't climbed to -4. Okay. Well, stay warm, stay healthy, and we'll see you next week on our next Friday 15.